Welcome to Knowledge on the Go, the podcast brought to you by the PI programs team at Vizient. Today, we're going to cover sepsis and how we can each help spread awareness around it. Sepsis is a life-threatening medical event in the U.S. alone. 1.7 million adults develop sepsis annually, and 1 in 3 hospital deaths are associated with sepsis. Joining us is our other host and sepsis subject matter expert, Shannon Hale, Senior PI Programs Director at Vizient, and I am Michelle Lewis, Senior Director of PI Programs and your host for today. Shannon, welcome back. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks, Michelle. Happy to be back.
Sepsis is a big topic. What are we hearing from other healthcare organizations?
The few things that we've been hearing from organizations over the last couple of years is it is really a struggle. There's evidence that sepsis can mimic other issues. If you think you have the flu, you go to the hospital or you go to your doctor's office. They do a flu test on you. There's really not a sepsis test that they can do. The provider is looking at different signs and symptoms. Recently, we've been hearing the lack of awareness, and I'm not just speaking about the providers. I'm not just talking about the staff, because we have heard that as well. I saw recent data that said public awareness of sepsis and that term sepsis is getting better. The last figure I saw was something like 75% of the public can actually say, I've heard of sepsis. That's a big improvement, but there's still a lot of awareness out there that we still need to do, that we can improve on with the public, with providers, with staff. Those are some of the big topics that we've been hearing lately.
You've done several sepsis projects over the last couple of years here at Vizient. Could you go ahead and share with us what those covered and what's happening in the sepsis space?
We've done 2 projects in the last year and a half that come to mind. Members came to us and said, these are the things we're struggling with. Bundle compliance, which is a totally different topic on its own. But if we don't have that foundation of education, whether it's initial or ongoing, with our staff, with our providers, we really need to get back to the education piece. And the thing that's going to help with the education is having those champions, having a sepsis performance improvement team that meets regularly, is standardized, out there working to push that awareness, to help us understand where we need to improve.
Tell us a little bit more about each of those and some of those lessons learned.
The sepsis performance improvement team, the importance of your sepsis champions. We often hear that having a great provider champion is important, and it is. We've also heard that having champions in those units that touch sepsis regularly, so the emergency room, critical care, basically everywhere, inpatient, even outpatient at this point, are important. But one of the key roles that really came out was the role of the executive champion. Think of your VP, someone that can get those resources, access to those resources that are needed to help spread that awareness, keep that PI team that's working with sepsis in place continuously, ongoing. We had several organizations say, hey, this project we're working on, we've tried it before. We couldn't get traction. We had a great physician, provider champion, nurse champion, but we didn't have the right executive in that seat. And here we are, we're trying it again. The importance of that executive champion has really come out in the last year or so in several of the projects that we've done here. This is where that sepsis PI team is going to benefit the organization as a whole, celebrating the wins when it comes to sepsis. So let's say you have some staff that are looking at clinical documentation when it comes to sepsis, looking at timing when it comes to antibiotics, celebrating those wins, whether that's sending an email to those staff saying, hey, great job. Organizations have found is that people love that. It actually helps build even more champions than you already have. You mentioned the statistics there in the opening. We could all agree we need more champions. We had one organization print out a certificate, and then they have someone in senior leadership go around and give a great job award when it comes to sepsis. They actually had their president go around to the floors. They take a picture with the nurse or the whoever they're giving that certificate to, and they put that in their newsletter. They put that on their social media. And again, that just helps build further awareness, stresses the importance, and builds future champions. We heard from organizations say, we have problems getting the meetings on the calendar. Everybody's calendars get so full. I would highlight their lessons learned here. They plan all of their yearly meetings once a month. every other week and schedule them all at once. And that has really been helpful. There's so many people traveling between facilities. It may be hard for me to be there in person or even at all. Having that designee and that stressed in the meeting planner body, call-in number where I can join on my phone as I'm driving, sustaining education around sepsis. This goes back to the basics, looking at how do we best educate providers and staff around sepsis. Some of the lessons learned, make sure that you've got the right people at the table. Make sure that you've got representation from each department that sepsis touches. Think of lab. They play a key part in sepsis. Chart abstractors, educators, information technology. All of these are very important when you're thinking about improving on your sepsis work. One thing that we heard is the frequent turnover of certain roles, specifically residents. So for those organizations that have medical residents, and I would even say now we're seeing more organizations with nurse residents, how do we educate them?
Shannon, has there been high turnover in the system? And if so, what has been a fix for that?
They come in July, they're here, and then next year they move on and the cycle begins again. Some organizations are doing some innovative pieces. They're educating the residents when they first join the organization. What is sepsis? How do we treat it? But they're also getting time in those monthly meetings or weekly meetings that stresses the importance of sepsis in the organization, helps continue that education around sepsis with those roles where we will see frequent turnover. And that's a given because that's how those resident roles go. You're going to see improvements as you do your sepsis performance improvement work. But think about sustainability in your overall strategy from day one. How are we going to continue these improvements? Who's going to be responsible for observing this and keeping their eye on that ball and making sure we either stay where we are or hopefully even perform better and continue to perform better? Most organizations are doing some sort of annual module, a web-based module. Organizations that are using social media to educate not only their staff through reels or short-form videos, they're using those items to educate staff and providers, but they're also doing it to educate the community. We had one organization on this specific project that presented, they started advertising on social media that we're going to have a sepsis community chat. You can do this from your home. You can do it from your phone, wherever you are. They got great turnout. But what they did is they advertised and said, this is going to be a time to come and talk to the chief medical officer who was on the video. Come and talk to the quality team. And it was live. And you could come and ask questions about sepsis. What is it? What are the signs and symptoms? When do I need to reach out to my physician? The use of social media is something that we're going to see even more of coming in the future, and it's the way of the world. That's a great way to think outside the box and different from how we have historically performed that education.
Those are really great, actionable lessons learned. You did hit on increasing awareness. So not only with providers and staff, but as well as with the community. What can we do to increase awareness around sepsis?
We all have to come together and really play a part. There's so much each of us can do. There's the education of the staff, of the providers, of the community that we've already spoken about. Not only doing something one time, but continuing it through those chart abstractions. We're recording this in January, so this is National Blood Awareness Month. Keeping those months out there that are for sepsis, that are for these different components that form sepsis is important. In September, the entire month is Sepsis Awareness Month. We had one organization last year that had the ED, medical director, and someone from their quality team go through the hospital, and they were dressed up as sepsis superheroes. They had capes and masks, and they would go around, and what this did is, sure, it was fun, but they went around and talked to staff, providers about sepsis, what it is, what we need to work for, what's our policy around sepsis. Recognizing those various months are important. Advocating for ourselves if we're the patient, advocating for our loved ones. Don't be afraid to ask the staff, ask the providers, could this be sepsis? That's a great way to encourage the community overall to bring awareness, even to our staff, even to each other as colleagues in the hospitals, in the clinics. There's public policy awareness at reaching out to our elected officials, representatives, our Congress, even our governors, trying to see, what can we do as far as sepsis, not only to increase awareness of it with the elected officials, push that awareness into where it becomes a policy, where it becomes a law.
I did hear you have recently done something around public policy awareness. So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
It was a fun day. There was a Sepsis Hill Day, Hill Day, at the Capitol, at the U.S. Capitol in D.C., and spoke to lawmakers about the need for policies, for laws around sepsis, but also educated the lawmakers themselves around what sepsis is. Some lawmakers, they've heard the word sepsis, but couldn't tell you what it is, couldn't tell you what the signs and symptoms are. We did education as well as push for national laws, national awareness in the U.S. Capitol. It was a great opportunity. It was just one way that I felt, what more can I do? I do this in my day job, but is there something else I can do? And talking to those folks, sit there and chat with you, it was refreshing.
That's great to have a voice at an event like that. Shannon, is there anything coming down the pike that you're hearing around sepsis that could help improve outcomes?
We're seeing AI. Everybody's hearing about AI, but it is even coming into the arena when we speak about sepsis. Several organizations are actually testing these now. It may be that they're looking at my blood and they're looking at those components of my blood, specifically the white blood cells, that may be increasing if you have an infection. They use that piece, they use different components from that test to help accelerate the time to identification. You don't want to delay diagnosis of suspected sepsis because the longer it goes, the higher the risk of mortality is. Each hour that diagnosis is delayed, the risk of mortality increases. These are great tools not to take the provider's role, but to really assist the provider in quicker identification of sepsis and really get that treatment going a lot sooner.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for joining all of us today, sharing what's happening in the sepsis space. And thank you to our listeners. Please join us for more Knowledge on the Go. Subscribe today, like us, and send us your comments at picollaboratives@vizientinc.com.